Welcome to Morning Bro, where I watch Morning Joe so you don't have to. It has become clear to me that Morning Joe is not the best barometer for how people are digesting this election. Nonetheless, they are the most prolific morning political show in the business. So let's get into a rather long segment here. I'll put it on 1.5x speed so we can get through it quickly. But the discussion about why Kamala lost this election has become so stale and so predictable within the MSNBC and CNN media universe that I just had to resurrect this series because James Carville is an asshole. Listen to this guy. He helped Bill Clinton, who was a neoliberal corporate centrist, really Republican light. The era of big government is over. Glass-Steagall, the crime bill, NAFTA, Telecom Act. That's all thanks to this guy. So why should we listen to him again? We need more presidents like Bill Clinton because he's perceived as a winner. James Carville is a loser that is perceived as a winner. The only reason Bill Clinton became president was because of Ross Perot. So here we are. Here's part of that legacy of political tradition. James Carville, everybody. He's going to enlighten us.
Reference to exotic positions, which I call identity politics. If you read the article in the New York Times, I said I give Harris credit. She does not bring this up. But this stuff is like smoke on your clothes of a fireplace. You can't wash it off. And those ideas, while it's true, they never said it. You know how many millions of dollars that the Republicans ran on anti-identity politics positions that people had taken in the Democratic Party in 2019 and 2020? The answer is a lot. Because you see, in politics, the other side gets to play.
Okay, so he just gave you justification for identity politics, woke politics, the far left, progressive left response to the culture war. He's giving you justification for dismissing any Democratic election loss as a result of identity politics, woke politics, progressive politics. He said it's like smoke that you can't get off your clothes after you've been near a fire or smoking a cigar or something, right? That means it's always going to be around. He's blaming this loss on things that happened a long time ago and that Kamala Harris did not resurrect. In fact, she actively avoided the subject of race and gender. Maybe she should have talked about it a little more. Secondly, he's saying that, let's give him another chance, actually. Hold on, what did he say?
The article in the New York Times, I said I give Harris...
The reason Republicans ran so many ads about identity politics, about woke politics, the trans surgeries, etc., was because that's what they want to make the race about. It's up to you, lefties, Democrats, to change the focus of the conversation onto something more consequential, something more real. The burden is yours. You have to accept the challenge. So this idea that the rhetoric of Kamala Harris was corrupted by the rhetoric of identity politics from 2 to 6 years ago is childish. It's childish analysis from a guy that looks like Benjamin Button.
Credit, she does not bring this up, but this stuff is like smoke on your clothes of a fireplace.
Yeah, you can't get rid of it.
You can't wash it
off.
Oh,
yeah, how convenient. So now you always have someone to blame.
It's true. They never said it. You know how many millions of dollars that the Republicans ran on anti-identity politics positions that people had taken in the Democratic Party in 2019 and 2020?
Because that's what they wanted to make the race about.
Because you see, in politics, the other side gets to play. And you've got to understand that. And it's going to take another 4 years.
He acts as if Democrats aren't supposed to talk about race and gender issues at all. It's ridiculous. The left is going to talk about race and gender issues, Carville, and it's on the current leaders of the Democratic Party to instill confidence in the next generation of leaders. And obviously that didn't happen this election. So here comes more crazy Carville.
Years before we washed the stench of this off of our clothes. Other very relevant, Alameda County, California, just so if you don't know, that's Oakland and Berkeley, okay? That's East Bay, recalled a pro-identity politics prosecutor by 30 points. So it was kind of on the ballot in Alameda County. But, of course, this was a stupid diversion for people to follow, for people to get into it. The problem is I clearly said that Harris didn't embrace this, but because it was embraced, they brought it up. And they ran on it. And they ran on it with senators. Ask Senators Manchin, Casey, Brown, and Tester if they think that identity politics in the early part of this decade had an effect on their vote in this election. I can tell you what they're going to say. Yeah.
Oh, if only we hadn't talked about race and gender. I mean, are you kidding me? No. This is the exact opposite of the advice that we should be getting. It should be pushed through. Don't stop talking about race and gender issues, because if we had actually taken care of, let's say, a gender issue like abortion, then the country wouldn't be in as much dire consequences as it is now. It's become painfully obvious to me how unaware most men are to the complexities that women live with, simply because of how much more complex their bodies are. It's something that a lot of men are really ignorant about.
We can all agree that the fascination with identity politics on the part of some people in the Democratic Party was a giant mistake.
Oh.
Well, and there'll be some commentators out there and some comedians that say, oh, they didn't talk about it during the campaign. No, of course not. They governed that way over the past 4 or 8 years. They talked about it over the past 4 or 8 years. And as James said, it was like smoke in a jacket or in clothes that you couldn't get it out. It takes a while to get it out. So they certainly ran $30 million of ads on social issues that tore away at it. And, Willie, I'm so glad James in that clip brought up California, because while California easily went for Kamala Harris, you had a recall of DAs, I think, in San Francisco, I believe in Los Angeles. You had the mayor of San Francisco defeated. And so much of it had to do what you and I have been talking about for like 4 years. And that is this very permissive approach towards crime. It's a very permissive approach towards homelessness that is not safe, that is not humane for those who are homeless living in tents.
Okay, he's going after no cash bail there and the tough on homeless approach, which is akin to the tough on crime approach. It's an antiquated, outdated approach to problem solving, okay? No cash bail is something that I am not 100% behind. I need to know more about it, but fundamentally, I do think that bail should not be required to be paid in cash. Secondly, the homeless issue, we need to invest in that. We need to invest in a real long-term system that will take people from poverty to functionality. And obviously, we don't have that in place right now. So a lot of these solutions that progressives want to enact are bold. And it comes down to the public perception of the politician. Does the American public believe that this politician is going to deliver the change that they're promising, or any change at all, really? Because incrementalism might as well be no change in America. There's a saying in the NFL, if you're not getting better week to week, you're getting worse. Well, when you go for incrementalism in politics, you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
In public places, this very permissive approach towards letting people go into stores, smashing and grabbing up to $1,000 in merchandise and not being charged with a felony. So California voters, and one of the most liberal states in America, they reacted against this sort of post-2000 viewpoint on crime as well. And it's just not working anywhere.
Yeah, and we saw it in New York City, too. I mean, you could talk about almost every major city where voters didn't turn out the way the Harris campaign fully expected them to and certainly hoped they would. You can talk about Detroit, you can talk about Philadelphia, but in a place like New York, the issue of bail reform, the revolving door of criminals getting arrested and being back on the street the next day, all of that stuff went to a feeling. And you mentioned San Francisco. It's not because the people who may have drifted from the Democratic Party and supported Donald Trump, it's not that they're MAGA extremists. It's they felt that common sense in some ways had been lost, that it doesn't make any sense to allow someone to steal up to $850 or $950 worth of merchandise to keep it a misdemeanor and let that person not serve jail time. What is that? Normal, sensible people, fair.
Right, because that's what decided this election. Is the no cash bail issue. Can anyone out there honestly say that no cash bail was even talked about in this election? Because I don't think it was. It's not these progressive mayors aren't the reason why Kamala lost. She crushed it in urban areas, or at least, as traditionally as Democrats do, she crushed it, but not as strong as she was expected to do. And that's because of turnout. So they're saying that identity politics are the reason there wasn't stronger turnout for Kamala, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Asked and voted on this time around. Jonathan Martin, let's get to your latest piece in Politico. It's titled People, Not Groups, How Democrats Can Retool Their Message. In this piece, Jonathan writes,
This is playing into my very first Dieter dichotomy, individualism versus collectivism. America is thought of as the first ever nation to centralize individualism within its culture and society. So he's playing to that. It's basically for white people who are sick of hearing people talk about race and gender. So that's a little frustrating, but that's also why I'm showing it to you. So here we go.
Democrats now have a mandate for change, and not just on tactics or points of emphasis. The breadth of their defeat and the number of voters who abandoned them present the party an opening to rethink their orientation around affinity group politics. The question is whether they'll be emboldened or cower when one of the groups, as identity-based organizations are invariably called, speaks up, but the reward is alluring. Whoever can retain the party's traditional commitments to the most vulnerable and appeal to those voters who just rejected Harris will emerge as the strongest 2028 nominee and perhaps the next president. And if Democrats don't change their appeals, they'll face the same cultural barriers with vast swaths of the country they have in every recent election. First, they must recognize that they unwittingly seeded the ground for Trump's revival. Their leftward acceleration under his presidency handed him the fodder he needed to portray the opposition as radical. And Jonathan, we hear all the time that it's the things you have to say and support to win a primary as a Democrat running for president come back to haunt you in a general election.
There was nothing radical about Joe Biden's presidency. It was actually a bigger catalyst for change than I expected it to be. The idea that what Joe Biden did as president was rhetorical fodder for Trump is really ignorant, because everything got better under Biden. Maybe not to the extent it should have, but everything still got better.
As 2019 Kamala Harris.
Exactly. Willie, that's exactly right. That spot that got so much play thanks to the Trump campaign was her speaking in 2019, because that was a period where the left was in full flower, the backlash that Trump was on. And the assumption among most Democrats was the path to getting back to power was trying to appear the most pure and race to the left in a primary. The one person, by the way, who didn't adopt that tactic was Joe Biden. He obviously won the primary and won the general, but Kamala Harris paid a price, not at the time, although she lost the primary, but guys, she paid a price 5 years later when that ad got played so many times. And this is, to me, the central question now with Trump back in office. Will Democrats learn from their mistakes from the last time he was president?
His entire analysis is based on assumption. He is assuming that those ads worked. He's also assuming that they discouraged turnout, which is ridiculous. The real explanation is that Kamala didn't offer more to the American public. It's the same lesson we learned from Hillary in 2016, and it's a lesson that we've learned in many elections in American history. In a two-party system, intuition would have you believe that all you have to do is say, I'm not the other guy, and the other guy is garbage. So do you want garbage, or do you want someone that's not garbage? Well, that actually doesn't work if you're a Democrat. It can work if you're a Republican. Sometimes it has. But if you're a Democrat, you cannot just say, I'm not MAGA. Do you rather have him in your living room for the next 4 years, or would you rather have me? That's not a real argument. It's not a real proposal. And that's the word that Democrats need to start to get more familiar with, is proposing policy. Yeah, vibes are important. Vibes matter. But vibes should be a means to draw attention to policy solutions. Because when you do deliver for the American public, they actually will show up for you by voting for you.
And not respond by this race to the left on every identity issue to please various groups in their coalitions. Will they resist that? Will they take the Harris path in 19 or the Biden path in 19? That, to me, is the most salient question. And what's been encouraging, I think, so far in my
What about the Bernie path, where he should have won and probably could have won in 16 and 20? I mean, they didn't even consider the Bernie coalition.
Today, the response that I've gotten across the board from a lot of Democrats is they just don't want to keep towing the line. They know that the identity politics, and the language especially, is alienating to large swaths of the country. And
of course you get an overweight 50-something white guy to talk about this issue. Are you serious? Getting a 50-something white guy to talk about identity politics? Think you probably should have found a woman and or a minority here on this particular topic. But hey, he had the balls to write the article.
I think they're ready
Right.
for some level of reform.
I also read that answer came in response to an ACLU questionnaire, and a lot of Democrats asking, why ask a question like that on a questionnaire? You're just setting somebody up in the future. But Jamar, just for people, people may not remember just how crazy things got in the Democratic Party in 19 and 20, just how far left everybody got. I remember, I become an independent. Mika said, you need to be a Democrat. You need to be a Democrat. And I said, I kind of like this independent thing. And watch the first presidential debate. And everybody up on that stage, except for, I think Joe Biden said they supported a return to busing. And I'm like, that was unpopular in 1974. And they darted so far left in 19 and 20 that you're right. They snagged a commercial from 19 during that time when Democrats thought, I got to go on far left to win. They snagged that and other things from 2019 and applied it to 2024. And America has gotten more conservative over the past 5 years because crime, because of the southern border, because of inflation. You go through the list. And so it's interesting that you say that Democrats are responding positively to this and saying, you're exactly right. We need to find a new way forward. It kind of reminds me of Bill Clinton, in 88 through 92. It was sort of the new way for the new Democrats.
Joe, here's what's so clarifying about this moment is you can't say that this was a bunch of racists, driving a pickup truck that done this. Look, I talked to Grace Meng, who represents one of the most diverse districts in America. It's Queens. All right, there's not an active Klan presence in Flushing today. Okay, and a lot of her district voted for her and voted for Donald Trump. These are first-generation Asian and Hispanic immigrants. Okay, you say to them something like communities of color, or we're going to uplift or center this or that. They don't know what the hell you're talking about. The party is using the language, as Carville often says, of like the Amherst faculty lounge. And they're not speaking like human beings. And what Grace Meng told me, she said, we got to use everyday American language that my grandmother can understand. And that's a really important point. And it doesn't take much. It's not.
This is advocating for dumbing down the rhetoric. This is the exact opposite of what Democrats should do. We are the party of the educated and the enlightened. Embrace it. The problem with this race is that you are trying to be more like Republicans. Stop trying to be like Republicans. Liz Cheney? Are you serious, Kamala? You'd rather be doing events with Liz Cheney? Hell, I wish you had done more events with Beyonce or other famous people rather than Liz Cheney. At least that would have helped to get out the vote.
Not a policy change, but it's an important, I think, reform that's got to be made.
All right, so let's bring in political columnist for New York Magazine, Ed Kilgore. Ed's latest piece is entitled Democrats Were Crushed in 2004, too. Then everything changed. And you write in part this, Ed, if I may. We are not in an era characterized by much interest in political history, unless there's a podcast on it that I've missed. But you don't actually have to go back that far to find a moment when Democrats were similarly afflicted. In some ways, election night 2004 was even more painful for partisans of presidential nominee John Kerry, thanks to faulty early exit polling showing him winning. As we now know, the sense of Republican strength and Democratic weakness that was so pervasive on election night 2004 was ephemeral. Democrats flipped both congressional chambers in 2006. And then, in the crucible of a highly competitive nomination contest, Democrats found the leader they needed in a young senator named Barack Obama. None of this, of course, is to say Democrats can count on anything like their post-2004 comeback in the days ahead. But there are plenty of things that could go wrong in a second Trump administration. So while Democrats really should conduct a thorough self-examination of what went wrong since 2020, despair is premature and probably unwarranted.
Yeah, so he's commenting here on political cycles, how we kind of live in a fuck you country, and the incumbent administration gets blamed for a lot of things like just happened that aren't necessarily their fault. So what he's saying here is that things will come around and Democrats will get another opportunity to win. What he's not talking about is the amount of damage Trump is about to do to the country. We're about to see mass deportations, people. We might see a federal abortion ban. We might see a lot of really dark shit that we can't predict. So, yeah, it's kind of an act. It's funny. It's a little bit hypocritical because this is actually something of an academic perspective, saying, "Oh, well, we'll come around. Don't, pick up your chin." No. This is a time for reform within the Democratic Party. We need new leadership. They just talked about Obama. Yeah, Obama got the nomination because he was young and exciting. Bill Clinton got the nomination in '92 because he was young and exciting. This is what we need. We need young and exciting. And I'll be talking more about this, but I think we need to leapfrog Gen Xers and go from baby boomers to millennials in terms of political leadership, because I believe Gen Xers are very, very capitalist. Very capitalist. Thank you for watching, by the way. Please like, share, and subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment. I'd love to talk to you guys. I can see about 13 people watching. Would love to hear from you.
The similarities between what happened in 24 and what happened in 04, as you laid out in the piece, were pretty remarkable.
Striking.
Willie and I always sort of joked about the fact that we've never seen Manhattan so depressed as the day after George W. Bush was reelected. It may actually have been worse then than the day after Donald Trump, as you said. But there were so many parallels in the election results, how they turned out, but also in the overconfidence of Republicans. Karl Rove, a guy who knows a thing or two about politics, looked at the 2000 election, Republicans overperforming in 2002, Republicans overperforming in 2004, and spoke confidently about a permanent Republican majority. 2 years later, Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House. 4 years later, Barack Obama won in a massive landslide.
This is what's called cope. This is what losers do. Oh, well, we'll get another chance. It was a good go. We had a solid effort. No, it's not how a winner talks. It's not how a competitive person prepares themselves for the next fight. No, what did we do wrong this time? What can we do better next time? And keep talking about that for a while, because we need to get that right if we're going to do things differently next time.
Well, that's all correct. Anytime you hear people talking about permanent majorities or political realignment or anything so fundamental, and
it shows you that they're playing to the boomer liberal audience here with this anecdote, because unless you're educated and enlightened millennial or younger than that, you're not going to know about this.
hearing a lot of talk from the MAGA camp right now along those lines that things will never be the same. Democratic core constituencies are abandoning the party left and right. Trump's making huge gains in New York and California, which he did make some gains, but over-interpreting the results in either direction is almost always a mistake. The ancient Greeks called it hubris, and I think there's a lot of that going on in Trump circles right now. And, there's always a calculation when you win an election. How much political capital do you expend on doing the things you want to do, like mass deportation that might backfire economically and politically, or how much do you really continue to pay attention to the electorate? One of the fascinating things about the 2004 analogy to me is that right after the election, George W. Bush announced he was going to spend some of his political capital trying to, quote unquote, reform Social Security, which for him meant a partial privatization scheme. That backfired. Republicans began abandoning Bush on it right away, and that was sort of the first step towards the debacles of 2006 and 2008. So if I were a Republican,
the economy also came
I would
crashing down.
be a little concerned about overreaching by this chronically over-the-top president and some of the people around him based on what was, in the end, a pretty small victory. Kamala Harris came with less than 2% in the 3 so-called blue wall states in the upper Midwest of winning the presidency.
Just under 9 million fewer voters than Biden got in 2020. An 11% drop in participation by Democratic voters.
She came very close to doing that, even losing the national popular vote like Trump did in 2016. So the idea that Democrats are, in some sort of free fall now, or Republicans are building a majority that will last, hundreds of years is just really kind of silly. And I think both parties.
How can you describe this failure as anything less than historic in proportion? She got absolutely destroyed. Did you listen to what I just told you? She got 9 million fewer votes than Biden did in 2020, an 11% drop in participation. Yeah, COVID made it, more dramatic for the election in 2020, and mail-in votes were, historic. But still, you can't turn out half of that gap and win the election, or even 30% of that gap and win the election. And the answer is no. Why? Strategy. She played to the middle. She didn't play to the base. The base didn't show up. It's obvious.
Parties should avoid overinterpreting this election.
So, Ed, 2004 election, 20 years ago, I remember it well. It seems as if it were 2 centuries ago, though, now, in terms of what has happened in this country, politically and every other way. But one of the biggest differences, and we were just talking about it with J Mart a few minutes ago, is the Democratic Party right now seems to have raced away quite swiftly and quite effectively from the concept of common sense. As J Mart pointed out, they have changed labels that mystify.
This is, again, in keeping with dumbing down the rhetoric. Common sense, tough on crime, more spending on the military, tax cuts for the rich and corporations. Yeah, common sense. Be more like Republicans.
People, there's no more homeless people in America. There are the unhoused now, things like that. And they
That's
seem
not
not
true.
able to go
That's
back
not
to
prolific.
common
Everyone
sense.
still says
So what
homeless.
would that do to their prospects of rebirth and electoral success?
Again, you could pull apart any close election and decide that one or two things caused the outcome. I think people are doing that. My old buddy James Carville is one of them. Or I think ascribing too much importance.
He's wrong about how badly she lost. It was not a close race. Trump gained voters. He got over 1 million more voters this time than he did in 2020. Okay? She did worse with anti-Trump Republicans than Biden did and than Hillary did. All right? The strategy didn't work. And it's not one or two things. It's a bunch of things that all add up to an extremely flawed strategy.
This idea of wokeness. I mean, the reality is that what we're really talking about is a single moment in 2019 when Kamala Harris did answered a questionnaire that showed her
It's not wokeness.
lining up 3 or 4 unpopular positions all tied up in a bundle. They managed to splice together some video and then ran ads on it in every single football game I saw going into the election. And did that decide the election? I don't think so. I mean, fundamentally, I think the election was decided by the fact that Democrats were in power after a pandemic that killed 1 million Americans and disrupted every single person's lives. They were sort of caught with the consequences of that pandemic and the bad feelings. And a significant slice of Americans really wanted to go back to the pre-pandemic economy and society. And lo and behold, the guy that was president then was on the ballot. And I think that was more important than a lot of these sort of fragmentary issues you could talk about. But by the way, I'm a veteran of the Democratic Leadership Council, so I'm aware that occasionally Democrats need to be told, talk common sense, address the voters, the electorate as it exists rather than as you wish it existed, and don't do dumb things. So sure.
Yeah, there you go. Political columnist for New York Magazine, Ed Kilgore. Thank you so much.
Ed.
Good
As
luck
it
with the phone call
exists.
from James, which
So
will certainly
she
be coming
did
later today. What
God
are you talking
awful
about?
with young people, and she could have scored easy points and differentiated herself from Biden by talking about student loan debt.
So, J. Mark, it is interesting. We can do two things at once. We can talk about what the problem with the Democrats has been, and talk through that.
Moving forward.
And, we can
'cause
look
this guy
again at the
knows.
swing states, which again, as
This
I
guy,
said,
this
swing
guy's worked
states,
on 3 losing campaigns. This guy's a definition of a
So,
loser. Look at this
Wisconsin,
guy. Let's
Kamala
see,
Harris
let's get a
lost
good shot of
by
him here
less
with his
than 1
eyes.
percentage point.
They're the window
In
into
Michigan,
the soul.
she lost
Okay.
by a
Come
little bit more,
on.
maybe 1.2
Come on, look at the goddamn
percentage points. So about
camera. He's not even
1% in
professional.
Michigan as well by the time the votes are
Fucking
tallied. In
loser.
Pennsylvania, by the time all the
Okay. Does this motherfucker look like a winner to you? You think this guy knows how to win? Now, this is not just based on perception, as I just said. He's lost 3 presidential elections. He's the definition of a loser. Why are we listening to him? Get some young people on Morning Joe. They don't even have to be that young. 35 to 45, something in there. And it's not just Willie Geist. That's not enough. He's a host. You need opinions from younger people.
votes are tallied, she'll probably lose by 1.5 points, maybe. Right in there. That's about as close as it gets. So, before everybody says this is like the worst thing that's ever happened, it's important to remember that a point here, a point there, 1.5 points in Pennsylvania. Suddenly, everybody's talking about how this was the greatest Democratic campaign of all time. That said, there are structural problems, and those aren't even the states I'm looking at. I'm looking at Texas, which
finally, like a moment
Democrats
of honesty.
kept
Listen to the
close
laugh.
Democratic campaign of all.
He actually okay. So laughter is truth for those who don't already know, and this guy laughs at the idea that this was a good campaign.
That's ever happened. It's important to remember that. A point here, a point there, 1.5 points in Pennsylvania. Suddenly, everybody's talking about how this was the greatest Democratic campaign of all time. That said, there are structural problems, and those aren't even the states I'm looking at.
He just thinks it was garbage for the wrong reasons.
Which
'cause he's a
Democrats kept getting
fucking
closer and
boomer.
closer and closer in Texas. They were like within 5 or 6 points last time. They got crushed in Texas. You look along on the southern border between Texas and Mexico, the southern border, which used to be all blue. All the way now, all the way up to the point till you get all the way up to El Paso. That's still blue.
He's not even that much
Everything
over me.
south
He's
of it, everything along the
47.
border, red.
Who's
You
a
look
Gen
at Florida,
Xer.
a 3-point difference in 2020.
This
What
is
12,
proof
13,
right here.
14.
Just stumbled onto some proof. I'm trying to make this point This is an example of why Gen Xers need to be leapfrogged in the next generation of politicians.
Now they're getting absolutely crushed in Middle America, and so they've got to, even if they win every single swing state 4 years from now, if they want to win the Senate, they got to start playing in Middle America. And so it seems to me we can do two things at once. We can say it's a very close presidential race, but man, they have lost. Democrats have lost Middle America.
Joe, the reason she had to pull the inside straight and win the 3 blue wall states, and you're right, it's going to be 200,000 votes and change between those 3 states. Close election, same as 16 was, same as 20 was. But the reason they're dependent upon having to win those 3 Big Ten states is because you can go from, St. Simons, Georgia, Sea Island, all the way to the Arizona-California border, way out in the desert. And guess what? You're going to touch one blue state the entire time. You can't lose the entire southern tier of the United States and expect to have a sort of easy map going forward. And by the way, New Mexico is the one state, and I think New Mexico and Nevada are also warning signs for Democrats. Much more working class, heavily Hispanic states. She lost Nevada. New Mexico was closer this time around. So yeah, Joe, it's a real challenge. If you're not able to compete in the big states like Florida and Texas, and you're losing most of the rest of the South outside Virginia, it's going to be a challenge to get 270. And you mentioned the Senate, too. Look, every state gets 2 senators. There's a lot more rural states than there are big urban states. And so it's a straightforward math issue. And the other thing is,
It's actually arithmetic, not math.
places like New Jersey are getting closer. I don't think Democrats are in danger of losing a place like Jersey. When you take a Jersey or a New Hampshire or a Minnesota, these are all 4 to 5, 6-point states now. So, look.
Because of turnout.
That's a real challenge for the party, and it's a pure math issue. How do you find 270? Well, if Texas and Florida aren't options, then you got to start digging.
And guess what? I mean, you're exactly right. Virginia,
North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona were all attainable in addition to the Rust Belt states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. All of those states were up for grabs. Yeah, Florida and Texas are gone. Accept it. That's what a real competitor does, is they accept their limitations. They play to their strengths. So we should have nailed Georgia. We should have nailed Carolina. Why was Charlotte turnout an issue? Can you not get people to show up in Charlotte? What about the Atlanta suburbs? I mean, there aren't that many areas that you need to make sure people turn out. And this is also another argument for making Election Day in America a national holiday. But that's, maybe in 20 years.
a 5-point margin. Minnesota, only a 4-point margin.
Right.
New Hampshire, only a 3-point margin. I mean, these margins.
These numbers are all skewed because Kamala got 9 million fewer votes than Biden did 4 years ago, which was an 11% drop in participation for the Democrats. No one is talking about this enough. I know people out there are talking about turnout, but they're not talking about how the turnout, the lack of turnout, was a result of a failed strategy. And let's be serious, a weak candidate. I'll get into that in a minute.
Are getting tighter and tighter for Democrats in the states they're supposed to win, and wider and wider for Republicans in the states they're supposed to win.
Politico's Jonathan Martin, thank you very much for being
Thanks,
on
Nico.
this morning. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making headlines this morning. There is a major shakeup involving Saudi Arabia's
Saudi Arabia, yeah. All right, so let's move on to the 3 reasons that Kamala lost. I'm actually going to give you 6 reasons. I'm going to tell you 3 contextual reasons why she lost and 3 controllable reasons why she lost. All right, let me get my notes here really quick. So the first contextual reason, these are variables, okay? The first contextual variable that was beyond Kamala's control, okay? America is still a sexist and racist country. We have come a long way, but we still have very far to go. It's obvious, okay? She cannot help that. She had little to no fan base. She didn't even make it to the 2020 primaries, okay? So Kamala Harris wasn't like, say, Amy Klobuchar, who actually did have a fan base. But don't get me wrong, I don't wish Biden had picked Amy Klobuchar instead of Kamala, but maybe he should have. I don't know. Liz Warren, if she got some coaching on her personality, maybe it'd been a good choice and not stab Bernie in the back. But Kamala had little to no fan base, okay? That's the second big contextual variable that people aren't taking into account. The third contextual variable that people are coming around on and seeing pretty clearly, actually, is that Kamala represented an incumbency that was elected under extreme circumstances and had very tenuous popularity numbers since the midterm elections. Okay, Biden was not a popular president. Obviously, we remember what happened in the debate. He was spiraling downward leading up to that as well. It was not just him getting old. It was a result of a lot of things. So she didn't really have a strong incumbency to build off of, and people definitely saw it as a continuation of the Biden years, and that is mainly on Kamala for not differentiating herself enough, not coming up with big, bold ideas. And why? Because she's not a big, bold politician. She was outclassed. She's out of her league. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. So those are the things, though, that she can't help. Okay, those are the contextual variables. Now, here are the controllable variables, which are the three big fuck-ups of the Democratic Party: targeting, messaging, and marketing. Okay? I have made a bigger stink about this than any other issue. Targeting. She went after centrists and anti-Trump Republicans following the convention, when the lead-up to convention included Tim Walz, who is pretty left, coming in as her VP nominee, and also, I would argue, a party in Chicago that felt pretty damn progressive to me, felt pretty diverse, felt pretty inclusive, felt pretty great. I talked to people who went. They had an amazing time at the DNC convention this August in Chicago. That momentum did not carry over into the campaign because Kamala and her Biden-appointed campaign team went like this. Well, we got the progressive base lined up. Now it's time to get the gravy votes. No. Trump, on the other hand, as a superior politician does, played to his base after Labor Day. And that's what Kamala should have done, and she didn't. So that was the number one most controllable variable that Kamala could have done differently, is targeting. She could have targeted younger voters. She could have targeted, obviously, she could have targeted Latino men better, based on everyone's talking about that demographic change, which is super interesting. Number two controllable variable where Kamala fucked up, and it's not just Kamala, she's just the most conspicuous member of a team of failures. Messaging, all right? Going for vibes over going for policy turned out to be code for, hey, we're not MAGA. We're not MAGA. You want us in your living room for the next 4 years, or you want MAGA trash? That was the vibes pitch, okay? If you're a Democrat, you can't win the White House by simply saying, I'm not the other guy. I know intuitively that would make sense in a two-party system, but it doesn't work in American politics. And now we have two, unfortunately, female examples of that ringing true, in Hillary in 2016 and now Kamala in 2024. And then finally, the third controllable variable is related to the second: marketing. Choosing the vibe of joy was a mistake. Kamala should have been a bitch. She should have embraced anger. Obviously, this country is angry. And you know what? That's okay, because people like me and many others find things to do with their anger, like work out, or just work, or meditate, do a bunch of different things. You can turn your anger into productivity if you're a mature person. But as we've talked about, MAGA is not populated by mature people. And apparently, neither are a lot of Democrats, because choosing joy over anger turned out to be the easier choice, not necessarily the right choice. All right? Now, here's the political theater of it. All right? Political campaigns, presidential campaigns in America take place within the context of a two-party system. It's not a horse race. They call it a race. Yeah, it's technically a race. But for all intents and purposes, it's actually a fight in terms of what kind of competition it is. Is it a race where any number of people can win, like any one of 10 people can win? Or is it a fight where only one of 2 people can win? Is it a game where only one of 2 teams can win? Obviously, American politics at the presidential level, and really, unfortunately, at every level, because it's a 2-party system, is a fight. And what Kamala was not offering rhetorically, this is the emotional part, this is the vibes part, this is the angry part. She did not offer the American voter the experience of knocking MAGA trash on their ass, knocking the bully on his ass. I wish I could say that I was legitimately optimistic going into this election, but the truth is I knew there was something wrong ever since Labor Day, following the convention, when she didn't play to the base really at all. It's one thing to have a portfolio of rhetoric where you're appealing to different kinds of people at the same time or very short periods of time in between one another, but it's quite another to completely ignore the type of people that make up your party, which are educated, urban and suburban, diverse people. And she didn't really speak to them after the convention. So anyway, those are my 3 contextual variables and 3 controllable variables that I'm going to be putting into probably an essay for next week. For now, I would love to hear from you guys. I've got 31 people in here. I just had 50 a second ago. I've never had that many. Now I'm up to 40. I bumped up. Please comment. What do you guys want me to talk about? I gave you my spiel. If you're just joining us, you can maybe rewind for a little bit and get some good content, because I just got done with a really great piece about breaking down why Kamala lost, 3 contextual variables and 3 controllable variables. So I would like to keep going. If anybody has anything that they want to say, 36 people, somebody's got to have something they want to say. I could go back to Morning Joe, but man, I really don't know if I want to. Here we go. Voted Bernie, then didn't vote, then Trump. Thoughts? Okay, so you are not a 3 strikes and you're out voter, because I believe that if you voted for Trump 3 times, then you're probably a TFG, too far gone, meaning you can't be reasoned with. Let's keep this up. So that you voted for Bernie proves to me that you are open-minded. That you voted for Trump at any point proves to me that you're angry and the anger got the best of you. With that said, pretty sure you're a guy. Just guessing. Maybe a white guy? Let me know. 1L Studios. Thank you for commenting, by the way. But I think you're one of the voters that was part of that million vote bump that Trump got. I think it was about 1.4 million votes that Trump got this time that he didn't get in 2020 against Biden. And so you're someone that actually, if Kamala's strategy had worked, you would have voted for, 1L Studios. You should have been persuaded by her to stick with the Democratic Party because she had some really cool plans. It sounds like you are a voter that wants big change. You just don't necessarily see the change that the Democrats are advocating, in this part I don't blame you for, as either big enough or in the right places. The problem with Trump's advocacy for change is that it's regression and bringing the country back. And that's what really scares me, is that we're actually going back in terms of time, but also like dimension. Like we're literally going to see mass deportations in the heartland of America and the coastal communities and all over the country. It's definitely a priority. It's definitely going to happen. That's going to be something that the GOP has to bear the burden of rhetorically for the rest of time. If there is a silver lining, and actually let me get to Stateless Patriot real quick. Thank you for posting. You nailed what Harris and the Democrats were missing this time. Oh, thank you. If there is a silver lining for someone like me with my level of, I wouldn't call it cynicism, because I think it's actually an appropriate judgment of the party as just losers, people that are capable of winning but don't, because they don't learn from their losses so that they can perform better next time. The big silver lining for me is that bipartisanship is dead. And to me, it has been for a really long time. But now the American voter is ready for a Democratic Party that says, no, we're going to engage in the politics of dominance, because we do have the better ideas, because we do have the better arguments, we do have the better people. So, mind-numbing Snoopy boobs. I'm talking pretty fast, Snoopy boobs. I'm from the East Coast, and I talk pretty fast. So, sorry it's not fast enough. I'm doing the best I can by myself. Understand that it's not easy. Trump will wreck the economy. Yeah, I'm interested to see if he actually goes through with the tariffs on imported goods, because that's just going to jack up the price of everything. And there's going to be some maybe civil unrest as a result of that. There will definitely be protests for the deportations. I don't know if we'll see... I talk at 1.5 speed. Well, that's wonderful, Snoopy boobs. I wish I could talk at 1.5 speed. In truth, I actually think I am currently talking at 1.5 speed. If I were to slow it down and so I could have a chance to think, that would probably produce better content. But as it turns out, I know how to run my mouth for a good 45 minutes all by myself, with the concession that I did have a little help from Morning Joe for the first half. Robert Lynn Schultz. The Harris campaign seems like a giant money laundering operation. I would say the same thing about Trump's campaigns. I'm 56 years old, have worked a couple of statewide campaigns, never paid anyone to speak at a political event. Maybe libertarians run differently. Money laundering operation. I mean, I'm open to it. I haven't done enough digging on that particular issue. I think it's run different, yeah. Laundering app. I mean, they were fundraising like banshees. I was getting 4 or 5 texts a day, and apparently people are still getting texts. So Snoopy boobs, as long as they deport the right people, I'm okay with it. Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ. No. Dude, no. The immigration system is extremely flawed. The solution is not to send people out of the country, then have them come back legally, as Republicans are so passionate about saying all the time. No, the solution is to give them amnesty, give them a path to citizenship, and have them be model citizens. Because if you know any immigrants, you know that they pretty much are model citizens. Good, hardworking people. They play by the rules. And here's the reason why. Most immigrants aren't necessarily living and working for themselves. They are living and working for their kids. This is kind of an out-of-the-box way of thinking about human motivation. Who is going to be the quieter, less maintenance employee? The person who's working for himself or the person who's working for his kids? Obviously, the employee who's got kids, because the job means more to them. All right? Immigrants are fantastic workers. I don't want to hear otherwise. Or I'll hear whatever you guys want to type. But this is ridiculous. The right people, come on, man. Who judges who are the right people or not? No. If you want to give amnesty to the people that are already here, and then you want to have a system of integration in place where immigrants get distributed throughout the country into places where there are jobs that people just don't want to live. That's a big thing that the left doesn't talk enough about, is there actually are parts of the country like the Dakotas where there are jobs. It's just people don't want to live there. So we're not, we gotta get you up to speed, Snoopy boobs. Here, you blitzed me, so here we go. If they deport the 2 million criminals and rejected asylum claims, oh God, I just dealt with that. Nomiki Konst went viral in 2017 for exposing the launder the DNC did. Oh, yeah, I should know that. Snoopy Boobs agreed. Okay, I don't know what that was in response to, but oh, you were correct. 95% of them. Okay, you're talking about my positive sentiments towards immigrants. Yeah. So you got to deal with the other 5%, man. You got to deal with the other 5%. Our social services should be able to take care of them, but we don't invest in social services in any kind of real way. Millions spent on celebrity appearances in their campaigns' financial docs. Oh, disgusting. Ew. They paid for those celebrity appearances? How are celebrity political appearances cost any money? People should want to do that for the cause. Stateless Patriot. Undocumented immigrants pay anywhere from $10 to $12 billion in taxes a year, but don't see the benefits of those taxes. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Well said. Snoopy Boobs. The right people are non-criminals. Read what I said. Yeah, I did. I caught up. Oh, no. Oh, no. So, anyway. Oh, no. What is that? Oh, no, that's just the back of the door. Anyway. They spent millions for those celeb appearances. Yeah, man. Well, you know, the Democrats and neoliberals love to go Hollywood. Yeah, we're going to be coming back with the Left Coast Live with Stateless Patriot, my man here, Stat Pat, on Tuesday of next week around 6:30 p.m. Pacific. He and I do a weekly show. I cut it up into shorts over the course of the week. I just cut up a ton of shorts from our last 2 episodes, so please have a look at those. Please subscribe to my channel. I got 33 people watching. I have never had over 30 this much for a live stream. I'm going to keep going until people tell me to stop. But I just want you all to please like, share, and subscribe. I don't even care so much about the likes and the comments and the shares because I know you're not going to share. That's not going to happen. I'm realistic. I'm a realistic guy. That's why you should enjoy coming here. All right? Find me on X if you want to talk to me directly. I do respond. I don't check it as much as I should, but that's the best way. The other way is dietermcbusiness@gmail.com. You can contact me that way if you want to either come on the show. Pizza. Brief description of who you are, please. Yes, my name is Dieter McBusiness. I am an East Coast white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, also known as the founders and still the relative rulers of America. I try to inform people about national politics from the perspective of someone that understands power and understands the politics of socio-cultural warfare, which this election proves are now called for. Everyone thought it was going to be roses and gumdrops for 4 years with all of Kamala's joy. Well, guess what, team? That ain't happening. So to answer your question, Pizza, I am a flaming progressive with a lot of big opinions, but and I try to bring a lot of knowledge to the table, but I am, unlike a lot of lefties, not afraid to admit when I'm wrong and not afraid to admit when I don't know something. Snoopy Boot, what's your background? Oh, so I have a background in media, and I studied media in college. I worked in it as both a creative as well as news media, documentary film, stuff like that. I went to Vanderbilt undergrad, UCLA for film school, and have been working in Hollywood ever since. From, like I said, from the Northeast, from Boston originally. Tons of corridor vibes coming here. And I have a theory that actually the next great president of the United States should actually come from the corridor. And that's why I end up talking about Westmore so much. So hopefully that answers your question, Pizza. If you want to know more, just ask me another question in the chat. Snoopy Boobs, I love Mexican. I live in a town that is 60% from south of the border. Yes! Real Mexican food is way better than Tex-Mex. Way better than Tex-Mex. All right, Robertlin Schultz, becoming my most thoughtful subscriber. Please subscribe if you haven't already. For Cam's appearance on the Call Her Daddy podcast, Cam would not go to that chick's studio. The campaign built a fake set in a hotel room for $100,000 Yes, the IKEA set special. Wow. Good work, Bob Schultz. That's good research, man. All right, what sets you apart from the sea of other YouTube commentary personalities? Well, first of all, oh, wait, hold on. Let me get to this really quick. Robertlands, that's insane, but I'm not surprised. Yeah, right? This IKEA, they built the set? Come on, man. I mean, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. Thank you, Stat Pat, for waiting in. Pizza, what sets you apart from the sea of other YouTube commentary personalities? Well, for starters, the left divides into liberals and progressives. We can get into the issue-by-issue differences some other day. I like to frame it as liberals are willing to accept incrementalism. Progressives want big change yesterday, okay? So that's one thing, is I'm progressive, not liberal. I'm also a millennial. I'm a little bit of an older millennial, so I represent a demographic that is actually the only demographic, at least as far as white people go, that is on the right side of voting trends from this last election, is millennials like myself with college degrees. So that's nice to know. Also, too, I grew up in a conservative household, and I know personally a lot of conservative power players, or should I say former conservative power players, really from the 1980s and 90s, really the Reagan years. I grew up in privilege, sailing and going to the vineyard in Cape Cod with people from conservative backgrounds that weren't just conservative. They had connections in the Republican Party. I like to say that if I had gone the other party, if I had gone with the Republican Party instead of the Democratic Party, and I'm not really a Democrat, I'm a progressive that is forced to vote Democrat, but if I had gone the Republican Party, I would have been Trump's running mate. It's like, there's no doubt. Like, I can work a camera and an audience way better than J.D. Vance can, and I had the connections up the wazoo. I mean, ridiculous connections I'm talking about, okay? So you're basically a straight Tim Dillon. It's apostrophe RE, by the way. No, that's a hell of a compliment to be compared to Tim Dillon. That guy is sharp and witty and obviously funny as fuck. No, he is a comedian. I try to be an analyst. I want to not just talk about problems, but propose solutions. So I'm not just going to say, this is why Kamala lost. I'm going to say, here's what the next candidate should do differently, learning from the losses. Also, I use my Dieterisms. Please go check out my very first episode and the subsequent oldest episodes, because they're video essays. They're not live streams. They're video essays that break down conservatism in a very fundamental way that I think you'd enjoy, Pizza. And if you are going to show my channel to anyone else, definitely show them those, because people do not understand the traditions of conservatism. Yeah, it's the Confederate flag-waving, Bible-beating gun nuts that mostly compromise MAGA, but I come from the tradition of power players that used to manipulate those people into voting against their socioeconomic interest. We're going to need to start a Patreon. Yeah, we would love, I definitely should. Still at 25. I, too, am under 500 subs. Sub to you for general practice. Small fish must school together. My content is vlogish. Stuff, desert living in Elko, Nevada. Well, I tell you what, you sound like you know what to her thing, Schultz. So if you want to come on, find me on X, at Dieter McBusiness, and send me a direct message, or you can email me, dietermcbusiness@gmail.com. And if you're good on camera, then we can maybe have you on. And I would love to have another West Coaster, because technically if you're in Nevada, you are still on the West Coast. And it would be cool to have you also, because Nevada is a swing state. So please, definitely get in touch with me. Get in touch with me for sure. Oh, here we go. So Bobert for Snoopy Boobs. I hope you're still around, Snoopy Boobs. Bobert for Department of Education. Yeah, probably. Well, the rumor is Vivek has his way as the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. He's going to want education department cut entirely. So don't even think about Bobert. Don't think about anybody. It's not going to be anybody that the Department of Education, because they're going to fucking cut it. Snoopy Boobs again. If you can make Pac-Man cry, I'll join your Patreon. I can make anybody cry, man. I can make anybody cry. Roe Berlin Schultz. Yeah, you're going to find me. Cool. Cool. Schulte. Yeah, we got to talk about your name. Is it Bob Schultz? I mean, Bobby? I hope it's Bobby. I love Bobbies. My dad's a Bobby. So, yeah. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been an awesome live stream. I'm willing to keep going. If you just keep feeding me prompts in the comments section, I'm happy to keep talking. It's nice to have north of 20 viewers because I really have never had that many. We did a live stream last night. Make a note, StatPat, Wednesday nights at around 5:30 or 4:30 or 5 might be a sweet spot for people to pay attention to us. So we should maybe make that time slot happen. But we were live last night, talked about a lot of different things. I went into the green screen studio today to do an essay, but I started writing it too late, and I need to do slides for it. So I'm going to break down this election loss in an essay and include what should be done differently. It might be a little bit on the longer side, like 15 or 20 minutes, explaining really how the Democratic Party needs to get real. And one of the, Rob is fine, my dad was Bob, okay, cool. One of the big shifts I'm going to be calling for, because let's face it, we live in a fuck you country. We do embrace the politics of blame. It's time to accept that and get good at it. So if you want to blame anyone, you can blame baby boomer conservatives. That is the ideology that has led us here. That is the ideology that we must politically euthanize if we are to survive as a nation. I think if we are to overwhelm the system with a new Democratic Party led by a new charismatic figure, you might be able to tap into the rural millennial, okay? People that grew up with dial-up, millennials, recognize how big of a transition our society made when it went from dial-up to broadband to now ubiquitous wireless internet. And the phone, the emergence of the iPhone, everything being in the palm of your hand. We understand the social consequences of that transition because we were around and socially developed in a time when those things weren't available. I also think the millennials, for maybe just reasons, aren't as competitive. We're more compassionate. We're more empathetic. We're more interested in people that are different from us. There's a saying about the Gen Xers that they're work hard, play hard. Well, that is not necessarily the millennials' attitude. So thank you, StatPat, for everyone here. Watch your videos. Yo, Riker, you're killing me, man. I hope you guys weren't having to suffer through listening to that. My dog. Can you guys see the dog? Yeah, there's the dog. His name is Riker. He's named for the Star Trek character in The Next Generation. Riker. Riker. There he is. Good boy. Good boy. Here, you want to see? You want to see the audience? Where are you, bud? Here. Come here. There you go. Here, maybe I should bring him up. Maybe this would be good content if I brought him up here. I don't want to mess up my jacket, but whatever. You guys need to give me more prompts to talk about. I'm willing to keep going, but I need more prompts in the comments section. Just drop some knowledge here. I know you guys want to meet Riker, so hold on. Let me get him for you. Come here, Riker. Come here, bud. Good boy. All right, so this is Riker. He is one handsome boy, isn't he? You can't really see. Okay, good. You can kind of see it. He has one solid blue eye and one, oh, there you can kind of see it, and one eye that's like a third blue. He is a good boy. He's so smart, and I love him, and he gives me all the love that I'll ever need. Good boy. Okay. Rob Schultz, fair warning, my new friend. I'm a Gen X libertarian, reformed Orange County, California, anarchist punk rocker. You know, that's fine, Bob. Rob, as long as you're open to certain kinds of leaders. That's what I don't think the progressive left or the left in general has been offering you, and that's something that I would like to help facilitate, is the selection process that leads to candidates. Okay, because I know a winner when I see it, and I know a loser when I see it. And it's time that the party get real about who's a winning candidate or comes across as a winner and who comes across as a loser. So if we were to put up really competent people, hold on one second. If we were to put up real competent people, then you would probably be more likely to vote Democrat. Let's see. Good boy. Yeah, I mean, you like that response? Dude, oh, sorry, guys. Hold on. Dude, you're killing me, Riker. Get out of here. Go. All right, nice. I'm still north of 20. Matt Gaetz is AG. Yeah, we'll see if he gets through. I don't know. He's gone now. You were like, yeah, you're like 20 minutes late. An open water dinosaur covered with barnacles. Sane man, let me know what you meant here. I think if you were commenting on something I was saying, I don't know what particularly you were talking about. So comment again and let me know what you meant. Eric Matthews, I've seen you before. Rob, so am I, only from Boston. I live in AZ. Yeah, another Boston guy. That's cool. Yeah, libertarians really just want the government to get out of their way, which I can understand. But you have to recognize, guys, that you need the government to do a lot of what our society requires. Police department, fire department, defense department. Come on. Medical needs. I mean, the basic infrastructure of our society, the bridges, the tunnels, et cetera, et cetera. You need the federal government and the state governments to do those things. And actually, I'll give you a quick example from personal experience. Offshore wind, I hate that private companies are running these offshore wind farms. There is no need for a for-profit variable to be introduced into the operating costs of those wind farms. And by the way, offshore wind isn't as sexy as you might think because of maintenance costs. That salty air is extremely difficult to keep operating something of that technological sophistication. Rob Schultz is, again, I'm open to all discussions, political, religious, societal, sexual mores. No topic is off the table except communism. Yeah, I'm not a communist. I believe that government has an appropriate role it needs to play in our society. But I tell you what, Rob, you're about to get fascism. You're about to see it, man. American fascism is going to be here in these first 18 months of the Trump administration. You're going to see mass deportations. I don't know how far he's going to go with it. I don't know how far he's going to go with any of his policy proposals, but you're going to see fascism at work. So I think you should be a little bit more concerned with fascism at the moment rather than communism. Let's see if you comment. Okay, here we go. I moved to where I am with some amount of attention to getting out of the way of government. Yeah. I don't blame you, man. I mean, most people want to be left alone. That's the thing. I feel like I can teach Democratic candidates how to talk to people like you. See, the problem with the Democratic Party is another D word. Deliver. Democrats don't deliver. Yeah, they have good ideas. Oh, Kamala's cute. She's not so bad. I could deal with looking at her and listening to her for the next 4 years. That's not enough. You have to convince your audience that you will deliver for them. And that just is not part of the Democratic Party's culture of winning that they need. And they think that they're going to learn how to win from the Republicans for being more like Republican. It's ridiculous, the analysis that I've been seeing. All right. Give the 9/11 private versus public airport security example. Yeah, definitely. Good call. All right. So for those of you who haven't heard it, I went down a deep rabbit hole in September about 9/11. I just think it's such a pivotal moment in our nation's history that has gone underappreciated since so much has happened since then. But 9/11, there really was a pre-9/11 and a post-9/11. It's called America's Long Weekend, which is the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 all the way into September 11, 2001. And then obviously we entered the War on Terror. So we ended the Cold War and then we got into the War on Terror. That time in between was the most fun time to be an American, arguably, in our country's history. So, what caused 9/11? Or, better question, what didn't prevent 9/11? Lots of things, but what was the last line of defense at the time? Airport security. All right? Airport security. Who ran airport security on 9/11/2001? The airlines. The airlines are why 9/11 happened. The airlines are why this country got into war in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay? Because we didn't have enough adequate airport security, because the government didn't take over airport security. And I will tell you a premonition that I had when I was a kid, my first time going to New York with my parents, flying back to Boston on the shuttle. We flew within view of the Twin Towers, and I had the thought, you know, it would be pretty easy if I was older and bigger and stronger for me to take this plane over and fly this plane right into one of those buildings. I swear to God, I had that thought. And that's actually a job in our federal government, is to come up with scenarios like that, to think like a terrorist and think about ways to disrupt our way of living. So obviously the conservatives and the neoliberals of the Clinton administration didn't do a very good job of coming up with how terrorists would attack America. I mean, is it really so difficult to believe that religious extremists are willing to give their lives for the cause if they're socially conditioned properly, if they believe that 1,000 virgins await them in heaven or whatever? Okay, a Ron Paul type, Mrs. Caucus, Dave Smith, yeah, fine, whatever. Yep. I am a little more optimistic with Tulsi, RFK, Vivek, Elon, and Trump circle. I am hoping for an anti-warmonger administration. That is my sincere hope. Well, Rob, oh, man. Oh, Rob. Vivek has been really very libertarian in his speeches. Dude, he's going to do what he's told. Okay, so, Rob, this DOG, this Department of Government Efficiency that Elon and Vivek are going to head up is going to be a complete disaster, man. This isn't just trimming the fat of government. This is taking away basic, fundamental parts of our society. They're talking about getting rid of the Department of Education, man. I know you're not for that. I know you're not for getting rid of the Department of Education. And by the way, the anti-warmonger thing is garbage, because look at who he's appointing in his cabinet. He's appointing warmongers. He's appointing the most ruthless people he can find. It's going to be brutal, Rob. You're going to have to join the Democratic Party, and all you got to say when you get there is, I don't want any more of Biden's people, Clinton's people, or Obama's people. Clean house. New generation. We're leapfrogging the Gen Xers and going to millennials. Rob, you gotta doesn't it take a little bit of intellectual humility to recognize when someone younger than you might know something that you don't? I think Karl Marx said that history repeats itself, first as a tragedy, second as a farce. Well, we are going through now the third Civil War, because the second was civil rights. Civil rights was a tragedy because, as we've talked about on this channel before, it did not obviously deliver enough for black people in this country as it should have. It has now repeated as a farce, with immigrants being the prime suspect in MAGA's fictional journey toward blaming the other for society's problems. I mean, you realize that, Rob, that this is scapegoat politics. This is exactly the kind of politics that Hitler did engage in. It's like, your life sucks, not because you're a degenerate, conservative, fear-driven, closed-minded loser who doesn't do anything differently and refuses to change. No, your life sucks because the immigrants are here and bringing crime and taking your jobs. And it's just not true. It's just not true. And you agree with me very much about the immigrants being good people. Okay, so Marx was not an asshat. He's actually very brilliant. And his ism has been hijacked and misrepresented in pop culture. no one is right about anything, about everything. No one is right about everything. Okay? Come on. Nobody wins them all. Nobody knows everything. There's a lot of stuff that I'm just starting to scratch the surface on with my knowledge in stuff that I know. And there's a bunch of stuff that I've been meaning to that I just haven't gotten around to. So I'm not saying that Karl Marx had all the answers, but he was something of an intellectual prophet with respect to what capitalism would deliver for its citizens, because it hasn't delivered great results, Rob. That's one thing. You cannot look at capitalism in today's society and say, yeah, it really is the best kind of society we can come up with. And the good news is that this isn't the version of capitalism that we have to live with. We can make adjustments to it. That's the purpose of government. That's the purpose of, say, constitutional amendments, even though it's incredibly impossible to get a constitutional amendment passed now. The spirit of the constitutional amendment is supposed to be the spirit of passing new laws and repealing old laws in our country. The framers wanted us to evolve and take responsibility for the country's welfare and the country's government. And that's a big thing that I don't think Democrats are doing. Neoliberal corporate centrists, they're not taking responsibility. That's what enrages me the most, is they're not taking responsibility for this failure. This is their failure, not the progressive left. This is the neoliberal corporate centrist. Trump spoke to people's problems. Democrats just spoke to identities. I actually don't know if Kamala spoke to people's identities. I supported Bernie out, but when the Democrats forced him out, Trump got my vote. Yeah, I can't blame you. Just, you know, you're one of those 1 million voters that Trump got this time around that he didn't get, back in 2020 or 2016. And you actually understand how the process works, and you understand that the Democratic Party does not practice what they preach with respect to the democratic process and how their primaries are executed. So anyway, I get what you're saying, Pizza. Thank you for watching. Thank you all for commenting. The progressive left is dead. No, that's not true, because if anybody's dead, it's the neoliberal corporate centrist. Because if the Democrats run another campaign like this, or if they run a guy like Gavin Newsom in 2024, they're going to lose. And they tried neoliberal corporate centrism this time. They won 4 years ago because there was COVID, and they lost in 2016. So objectively, you can't really put the progressive left showed up for Hillary Clinton. They just didn't show up for Kamala Harris. So I don't know. It's definitely not thriving. I will say that. It's just needs new leadership. We need new voices. And Bernie really needs to kind of anoint someone as the successor to his coalition. Kamala didn't have a leg to stand on. She dropped out before California when running for president. And remember, she was chosen for identity, not her character. Yeah, so she actually didn't even make it to the primaries in 2020. She didn't even make it to the first primaries. So she dropped out, yes, before California, but she dropped out before New Hampshire. She never even made it to the primaries. And yes, she was chosen because she was a woman. And there were other options. And if Liz Warren hadn't stabbed Bernie in the back, I'd say go with Liz Warren. But she's not a winner. She's a librarian. Come on. Tell you what, Hillary was a winner. She just didn't know how to be authentic. That, again, comes back to coaching. I wonder if Hillary wanted to go for big change. Like, I wonder if Hillary really wanted to go for Medicare for all, but didn't really believe it could work within the political apparatus as it was during her time. Yes, Pocahontas. All right, guys. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm getting pretty tired. An hour and 20 minutes is good. Thank you so much for watching and commenting. Please, please subscribe if you are not already subscribed, and like and share. Okay, so this is called speculation. You have no idea what life would be like if Hillary had won in 2016. It would be a completely different world. It would be a completely different world, and I don't know, and you don't know. All I know is that it wouldn't have been Trump, which probably means it would have been better. Si buenas. See you later. Good night. She's part of Uni Party. Yeah. All right. All right, guys. Thanks again. Please like, share, subscribe. And I'm Republican. I just hope the best for the country. Good night. Yeah, come back, C. Buenas, because I'm going to work on you. Come back, man. If you got an open mind, come on back. All the other conservative douchebags out there, they're just telling you what you want to hear. I'm coming with data. I'm coming with facts. I'm coming with truth. I'm coming with knowledge. And I'm coming with a surprising amount of humility. I'm going to deliver things to you in a very matter-of-fact kind of way, one that does not make you feel like I think I'm better than you. I might think I know better than you on certain issues, but, you know. If Hillary was elected, a lot of her friends would be taking dirt naps. Yeah, maybe. All right, that's the old. All right, I got to get out of here. Oh, we're back to 13. It makes me want to stay. Anybody got anything provocative? I'm willing to stay if somebody's got something provocative here. Provoke me, guys. Provoke me. Rob Schultz, if, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Anybody got anything? All right, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. This is Diener McBusiness reminding you that you don't get change in America by asking nicely. That, I'm sure, we all can agree on.